In October of 2023, the United States Department of Justice announced charges against the founders of one of the most successful cryptocurrency projects in history. Fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. The men behind SafeMoon, a coin that had once been valued at billions of dollars and celebrated across social media as the investment that would finally give ordinary people a seat at the table, were accused of stealing from the very community they had built. By the time those charges were filed, the coin had lost more than 99% of its value. Millions of everyday investors, people who had scraped together their savings and poured their hopes into a digital token with a rocket ship logo and promises of generational wealth, had been left with almost nothing. This is the story of how it happened. And more importantly, this is the story of why it was always going to happen. To understand SafeMoon, you have to understand the moment it was born into. The year was 2021. The world was still reeling from the pandemic. Ordinary people were stuck at home, staring at their phones, watching strangers on the internet become millionaires overnight from assets they barely understood. Bitcoin had already made early believers impossibly rich. Dogecoin, a coin literally created as a joke, had risen thousands of percent in value. The message being broadcast across every platform was simple and intoxicating. The old rules no longer apply. Anyone can get rich. You just have to be brave enough to get in early. Into this environment, in March of 2021, SafeMoon launched. The name itself was a masterpiece of marketing psychology. Safe. Moon. Two words carefully chosen to speak directly to the fears and dreams of a new generation of investors. It was safe, they were told. Unlike Bitcoin, which could crash. Unlike the stock market, which favored the wealthy. SafeMoon had a built-in mechanism, or so the story went, that actually rewarded holders for staying in and punished those who tried to sell. Every time someone sold their SafeMoon tokens, a 10% fee was charged. Half of that fee was redistributed to existing holders. The other half was added to what they called a liquidity pool. The pitch was elegant in its simplicity. The longer you hold, the more you earn. Selling hurts you and rewards everyone else. So nobody sells. For a brief and dizzying period, it worked. Or at least it appeared to. The coin launched on March 8, 2021. Within weeks it had exploded across Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. Celebrities were posting about it. Athletes were endorsing it. A gospel of financial liberation was spreading at a speed that no traditional investment product could ever match. The SafeMoon community grew to millions of members almost overnight. People who had never owned a stock in their lives were learning the terminology, downloading wallets, sending their rent money into a digital ecosystem they barely understood. The community called themselves the SafeMoon Army. They used phrases like "to the moon" and HODL, short for "hold on for dear life," which had become a kind of sacred creed in cryptocurrency culture. They were not just investors. They believed they were part of a movement. The man most associated with SafeMoon's public face was John Caroni, who served as the company's chief executive officer. Caroni was young, enthusiastic, and relentlessly promotional. He appeared in live streams and interviews projecting the energy of someone who genuinely believed they were changing the world. There were others too. Thomas Smith, the chief technology officer. Ryan Orioga, the chief marketing officer. And crucially, a man known to the community by the name Papa, whose real name was Kyle Nagy. Papa was the original creator of SafeMoon, the architect of the tokenomics, the man who had first put the pieces together. He was beloved by the community. He was their prophet. What the community did not know, what they would not learn until investigators began pulling at the threads years later, was that from the very beginning, the people running SafeMoon had built themselves a hidden door. The mechanics of cryptocurrency make this kind of scheme both possible and difficult to detect in real time. When SafeMoon launched, the founders had allocated themselves a significant portion of the total token supply. This is common practice and not inherently dishonest. But the allegation, which would eventually become the basis of federal charges, was that Caroni, Nagy, and Smith used their control over the liquidity pool to secretly siphon funds. The liquidity pool, remember, was the money that was supposed to provide stability. It was the mechanism that allowed people to buy and sell the coin. It was the bedrock promise of the entire enterprise. And according to prosecutors, the founders treated it like a personal bank account. The alleged withdrawals were not small. Prosecutors claimed that millions of dollars were taken from the liquidity pool and used to fund personal lifestyles. Luxury cars, real estate, travel. The precise figures alleged by the government were staggering. And while this was happening, the community continued to invest. The marketing never stopped. The promises never stopped. The rocket ship emoji never stopped appearing in the comments of every post, every live stream, every tweet. There is a particular cruelty in this kind of fraud that separates it from more abstract financial crimes. When a corporation commits accounting fraud, the victims are often institutional investors and pension funds. The human cost is real, but it is diffuse. With SafeMoon, the victims were individuals. They were single mothers who had heard about the coin from a Facebook post. They were young men who had taken on debt to invest. They were retirees who had been told by someone they trusted that this was a legitimate opportunity. When the coin collapsed, these people did not lose a percentage of a diversified portfolio. They lost everything they had put in. The collapse itself did not come with a single dramatic event. Cryptocurrencies rarely die in one moment. They bleed. SafeMoon's price began its long decline in early 2022. By that point, the broader crypto market was entering a severe downturn. Bitcoin fell. Ethereum fell. The collapse of the Terra Luna ecosystem in May of 2022 sent shockwaves through the entire industry and accelerated the losses everywhere. For coins like SafeMoon, which had always depended more on enthusiasm than on underlying value, this was fatal. The price fell week after week, month after month. The community that had once numbered in the millions grew quieter. The promotional tweets became less frequent. The promise of the moon receded like a mirage. And then in October of 2023, the Department of Justice filed charges. The Securities and Exchange Commission filed a parallel civil case. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission filed its own action. The charges described an operation built on deception from the start. Kyle Nagy, the man the community had called Papa, apparently cooperated with authorities. The others pleaded not guilty. What happened with SafeMoon is not unique in history. That is the uncomfortable truth that financial historians must sit with. The structure of the SafeMoon scheme, the enthusiastic community, the charismatic founders, the mechanism that seemed to reward loyalty, the hidden extraction of value from the very people who believed most deeply, this is a pattern that has repeated itself across centuries of economic life. The South Sea bubble of 1720 ruined thousands of English investors who had been told that a trading company held fabulous untapped wealth. The railroad speculations of the 19th century were riddled with promoters who skimmed fortunes while selling ordinary people shares in lines that would never be built. Bernie Madoff's investors were not foolish people. They were doctors, charities, retirees, community institutions. They trusted because the story was good, because the returns seemed consistent, because the man at the center seemed credible and connected. Human beings are not well equipped to resist a sufficiently compelling narrative of wealth. We are social creatures. When we see others becoming rich, when we are told that an opportunity is rare and time-sensitive, when a community of millions seems to confirm that we are making the right choice, our critical faculties often fail us. This is not weakness. It is humanity. And it is precisely what every successful financial fraud has exploited since the first confidence man ever shook hands with a stranger. The digital age has not changed this dynamic. It has accelerated it. Social media compresses the timeline of a financial mania into weeks or days rather than years. The promotional machinery that might once have required newspapers and word of mouth can now reach millions of people in hours. The communities that form around speculative assets are real communities, with real bonds of trust and identity, and when those communities are built on top of a fraudulent foundation, the betrayal when it comes is total. The SafeMoon army did not just lose money. They lost a community. They lost an identity. Many of them lost the trust they had placed in people they had come to think of as honest and visionary. Some of them had argued publicly with family members who told them to be careful. Some had convinced friends to invest. The social and emotional cost of the collapse was layered on top of the financial one in ways that are difficult to quantify but impossible to ignore. John Caroni was convicted at trial in 2024. The verdict came after years of legal proceedings that laid bare the mechanics of what prosecutors described as a massive fraud. The community that had once cheered his every announcement was long gone by then. The coin still exists, technically. It still trades, at a fraction of its peak value. There are still a handful of true believers in online forums who argue that the story is not over, that the coin will recover, that justice will come. This too is a pattern that repeats itself. Hope is the last thing to leave. History does not offer us a clean lesson from stories like this. We cannot simply say do not invest in cryptocurrency, because legitimate innovation does exist within that space. We cannot say follow the experts, because experts have their own failures and biases. What history does tell us, quietly and consistently, is that when a story sounds too good, when the community around it demands belief rather than skepticism, when the people promoting it are rewarded more obviously than the people investing in it, the wise response is to pause. To ask who benefits most. To look for the door in the wall. SafeMoon promised the moon. What it delivered was a lesson that generations before us have already paid for in full. The tragedy is that each generation seems to need to learn it again. If you want the full story and more dark business secrets, find us on YouTube at Corporate Crypt. The link is in the description. Subscribe so you never miss a story. And if you want to create content like this yourself, check out the AI tools in the description below.